Today's video is sponsored by RPG Stories, Wrath of Devs, an expansion to the biggest 3D world builder available. RPG Stories is a massive virtual tabletop that supports games like D&D, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, Alien, Walking Dead, and the list goes on and on. Build scenes with just a few clicks to reduce the amount of build time by hours. Or, if you prefer to use the pre-built quests, you can simply open them with a single click and play without having to build anything. There's going to be a bunch of quality of life improvements coming as well. Users will be able to create and manage their character sheets within RPG Stories. A new initiative tracker, line of sight, sound effects events, and exports to other VTTs like Foundry and Roll20. RPG Stories is available on Steam already, so you're not going to be waiting years to get your hands on this powerful, user-friendly VTT. You can pledge to get the original version, as well as the expansion, at a massive discount. Click the link in the description below and start building the world you imagine. And now what you're here for. That guy hijacks campaign and DMs it into anime hell. This was one of the most stressful and annoying D&D campaigns I've had in my entire life. One where I found myself on the end of it both confused and holding weighted dice. This is going to be a bit of a long story. I'm sharing this because the party involved wants others to know about what we had to deal with. So you might want to get comfortable when you listen to how cringy fanfic writer almost ruined a friendship over his dumb OC. The people of this story. The DM is a pretty cool guy that really got me into D&D and ran the first half of the story. He came back to save us in the end. Monk, a girl who worked at the game store that we played our games in. Sorcerer, she was a group cinnamon roll, in real life and in game, who loved to do commissions. That guy. He played the paladin, warlock, edgelord, and became our DM for the second half of the campaign. Rogue, my character's soon-to-be blood brother. Barbarian and bard, they didn't stay long in the second half because of that guy. And finally me, playing a tiefling cleric, the joke character that became important later. The story started a few months before COVID happened. I just got through a Curse of Straw game and I was interested in joining a game that would start at level 1. So, after looking around online, I found a DM that was running a game at a game store 15 minutes from my place. The time was perfect and it wasn't that far. So after talking with the DM in Discord, he said that the only 2 roles that the party needed was a rogue and a healer. I'd already played a rogue in the Curse of Straw game, so I chose to be a healer. After looking at a few options, I ended up picking a life domain cleric. But I didn't want to play a normal cleric. I ran my idea through the DM and he burst out laughing. He said that he loved it and that it would fit perfectly with the part of the world that the player started in. When I arrived at the game store, it took me a while to find the group, but the monk found me and pointed me to the room that we were going to play in. It was an old break room that the monk had turned into a D&D room that the store rented to those that wanted to use it. I then met up with the other players. Sorcerer was playing an aberrant mind Kalishtar who wanted to fight evil. Monk was playing a tomboy Kensai Ronin. Rogue was playing a gnome phantom rogue who lost his memories. Barbarian and bard were playing a zealot and a scribe. I loved their backstories and how they were introduced in the story. The only one that didn't sit right with me was that guy's introduction. That guy introduced his character with a small monologue about a ripped, white-haired paladin that was kicked out of his order for not following the rules. But his magic was still there because his goddess loved him more than the other vengeance paladins. But what actually happened was that a powerful succubus disguised herself as his goddess and made him leave. And since he left, he traveled the world smiting evil as the, and I quote, ultimate badass. The story started off by the party meeting up for a job to escort a merchant into the cursed lands so he could gather materials. When the party saw smoke and heard singing up ahead, they soon met up with my character. I introduced him as an orange-skinned tiefling with wooden horns, playing a ukulele and smoking the biggest blunt that one could ever own. A quick backstory of my character. He's a tiefling that grew up in the Feywild. After smoking some strange herbs, he saw Saloon herself and took it as a sign to become her loyal follower. The actual goddess thought this was weird, but she was just glad that she got another follower. This was when that guy pointed his greatsword at my character with one hand and demanded in a serious tone that I introduced myself. My character was high. So he didn't care about the blade and just casually introduced himself as Zarios, a follower of Saloon. The sorcerer insisted my character join them. That guy only agreed if my character persuaded him. We rolled and my character with a charisma of 11 got a lucky 18, while that guy with a charisma of 18 got a nat 1 on convincing me to not join. So I ended up joining them free of charge since the merchant wasn't the one that hired me. Ever since then, our characters worked for the merchant for a few missions before we left him to adventure on our own after we reached level 3. My cleric got along with most of the party. He even kept the rogue from being an edgelord by being his drinking buddy and helping him with guidance when he was still learning how to play his class. My character would patch the party's wounds, cook their meals, throw a few jokes to keep morale up. However, that guy's character and mine never got along. He would always try to make me switch to his religion since his goddess was far superior. Not only did he try to out-roleplay my character, he tried to out-damage my character. My character was focused on healing, so it wasn't hard for him to do more damage. That guy would always try to be the first one to start conversations, fight the toughest enemy, and speak with important NPCs. Not only did he try to make his character stand out more, he even tried to be the party leader. He even tried to insert himself into other players' backstories when the spotlight was focused on them. The sorcerer was trying to understand her magic. That guy would try to be her mentor. Rogue uses his contacts to help the party gather information. That guy would use his paladin status to gather even more information, sometimes by threatening Rogue's contracts with death or imprisonment. Barbarian and Bard were comrades in arms from the war. That guy would always insert himself in their conversations to boast about the value of friendship and loyalty. Monk has a dead father to avenge and doesn't trust political figures. That guy would talk about watching both of his parents' deaths as a child and offers to be her brooding buddy. Not only did he try to hog the spotlight, he would do so in a way that would kill the mood for the other players. We had to tell him out of game multiple times to let the other players play their characters. He would stop for a bit, and we would have a normal session, but he would then come up with any reason to step back into the spotlight. His reason for mentoring Sorcerer was that his character was also a charisma caster. He mostly did this to get along with the women in the party. His character would even sometimes flirt with the monk, only for her to turn him down. But he played it off as her playing hard to get. This behavior would only get worse when he multiclassed with Undying Warlock. This allowed him a form of dread that was his Death Monarch form called Shin something. It had blood in the name. I, however, focused mostly on Cleric, but I did add one level of Fighter, and this would be important later. While the party would work together, that guy would focus his spell slots on smites and his lay on hands to heal the female characters. One time I was in the single digits since I used my spell slots to keep the party alive, and that guy ran past me to heal the sorcerer who was at half her max HP. So I had to use my second wind to heal myself. But even after placing himself into their backstories, helping the female characters, and fighting on the front lines, the other party members favored my character more. This was because he went out of his way to buff the party, keep them alive, perform cool combos on enemies, and just generally being pleasant to be around. And quite frankly, this didn't sit right with that guy. The world was full of these cursed lands. There were places that were so wrecked by a war with necromancers that it started to make resources rare over time in those places. Monsters would appear out of these places that would attack towns, and would make defending them a profitable job for adventurers. This also made being a hero something earned by how many people you saved, instead of how many monsters that you've killed. Something that the other party members and I focused on. Since that guy was someone that made a lot of boasts and acted higher than normal people, most people didn't care about someone calling himself the ultimate badass. That guy's character was recognized for his strength, but he wasn't loved by the important NPCs for abandoning some citizens in order to kill the toughest monster that showed up. Combine this with the party's lack of care about that guy's succubus goddess, both he and his character were a bit sour about the lack of recognition. Since we focused more on dealing with the cursed lands, we didn't focus on dealing with that guy's side quest of killing his old paladin order. But then COVID hit hard, and we lost our ability to meet up, and our DM had to look for new work. We thought that our game was over and it made us a bit sad. But that's when that guy offered to DM for us in the same world. Since the rest of the group didn't know how to DM, we decided to do our best to finish any remaining quests and make an ending that everyone wanted. We got Roll20 and Discord set up to play online, bringing hope for the story. But this was actually the worst choice that we've ever made and almost killed the fun of D&D. That guy continued where we left off. We thought that him being the DM would mean that he would retire his character. But instead, his character was approached by his old order and a fight broke out. So it was a party of 7 level 6 characters versus 20 level 11 Oath of Vengeance paladins. I was the first to be knocked down, then the rogue, barbarian and bard were the last to fall. But before monk and sorcerer were knocked down, that guy's character activated a form of dread and murdered the paladins with 5 attacks per turn and unlimited smites. After killing the paladins, that guy described as the shadows left their bodies and light shines from their armor. They then got back up and praised that guy's character for freeing them, and that they could see that his goddess was the true goddess. This obviously confused the entire party when the former dead paladins all swore loyalty to that guy's character. That guy's character then informed the party that he is his goddess's chosen one, and that he would help us fix the cursed lands. Thankfully, my character was healed by the sorcerer, who gave him a healing potion, because once again, that guy left my character dying on the floor. After that, the story mostly focused on his character, and how he would purge all evil. But surprisingly, the story was somewhat decent. The party had to deal with a few tough encounters of powerful devils and demons, but with Mr. Chosen One, our party was saved in the end of those fights. Our goal was to finish our character's personal quest, so we tolerated the monologues and anime protagonist speeches. That guy described our goal to fight an evil devil council led by a devil king to break the land's curse. How he decided devils were behind something that the previous DM said was caused by a war with necromancers showed his true dedication to the story. The other players and I all had to convince him to let us work on our character's personal quests along the way. We had to because he nearly forgot about them when he almost killed a few important NPCs that had connections to our characters. Even some NPCs that never liked that guy's character suddenly started respecting him and sponsoring him. The noble female elf that was engaged to Bard had to cut off the engagement due to how difficult and tough work had been on her, but she too was now one of that guy's sugar mamas. We pretty much no longer cared about the ending after that. This started to make us want to finish our character stories faster, so we would leave the story unfinished for only that guy. This was something that we've tried to focus on for the next 2 years. That guy probably never killed the guys off due to him wanting the game to last a while. Since we were playing his game, this allowed him to continuously make his character look cool, and gave him more attempts to flirt with the monk and the sorcerer, with his character or a few NPCs. But I could tell that guy didn't like how Monk was slowly getting closer to my character. This was because her character didn't like political people, and that guy's character became the most political figure in the world. He tried to claim that he wasn't, but as someone who holds more power than kings, I doubt it. Since my character was the most chill guy in the party, Monk would always come to my character for his wisdom and funny voice. This actually started a joke on our private Discord about them being a couple. The private Discord channel is something that we formed to roleplay with our characters without that guy joining the conversation. This is where Rogue and I had our bar talk, Sorcerer and I compared drawings, hers were always better, and where Bard and I would write funny songs for him to use. This channel was something that we used to de-stress in between sessions or come up with our battle strategies. It was the glue that kept our love of D&D together. We tried a few times to leave that guy's character, since he clearly didn't need our help, but he pulled the monsters of the cursed lands have gotten stronger, so it's dangerous to travel without a group of paladins card. We tested this and I had to resurrect the barbarian after a brutal massacre. Luckily, he was a zealot, since none of our party could afford diamonds ever since joining the paladin group. That guy obviously did this to keep us from getting more potions than the ones that his character gave us, or any cool items to make us stand out. Even as we gained a few new levels, spells, and abilities, whenever we leveled up, which was rare, that guy would always give his character something that would make his character stand out more than ours. He did give a few items to Monk and Sorcerer, since they were close friends to his character. They did convince his character to give the rest of us a few items, but they weren't anything like the girl's items. Sorcerer got an amulet that allowed her to summon a pet cat that gave her psychic flames, magic robes that negated non-magical damage, and gloves that gave her Monk martial arts skills that used her charisma for unarmed attacks and damage. Monk got a legendary crimson blade that could use her ki to light it on fire and do extra slashing damage, defense and speed boosting clothes, and a sentient choker that gave her advantage on attacks once per round. Meanwhile, the guys only got a few +1 items, or items that aren't very good for combat, and a single pair of winged boots, which we eventually lost the winged boots when a goblin somehow snuck past that guy's character and stole them one night. That guy would always make a +1 weapon sound interesting by describing it as a gift from someone or having it have cool patterns, but they were ultimately just +1 weapons that never lived up to the hype. My character got 3 sets of armors from different people, each having their own description and design. If this wasn't bad enough, things got even worse after the accusing incident. I still need a better name for it. Pretty much one day after killing our first devil general, that guy killed it, of course. That guy wanted the party to attend a fancy party that was thrown for us. We weren't into that since we didn't do too much in the fight besides survive. I spent all my spell slots to heal the party, and I had to drag the barbarian out of danger twice. But that guy's character insisted that we go since we were a team. So he had us roleplay clothes shopping for the rest of the session. This wasn't that bad since it gave us something that didn't involve getting almost killed or having to listen to NPCs kissing that guy's ass. A few merchants and tailors did, but that was far less than usual. The party got their clothes, picked some fancy titles, and Sorcerer got ideas for her next commission. Then when the session ended, Monk sent me a message for an RP. It had Monk visiting my character in his room at night and requesting to smoke an herbal supplement for the first time. She and I smoked together and talked about how that last fight nearly got us killed, and how she was grateful for me sacrificing my holy symbol to revive her. She got a nat 1 on her save and died to some homebrew BS. My turn was before that guy, so I was the first to revive her. But that guy made my holy symbol the only substitute since I didn't have a diamond, and I pretty much lost my magic for the rest of the fight after it, but it was worth it. I told her that it wasn't a bad thing, since I was able to still drag the barbarian out of the fight, and that the sorcerer bought me a new one. We talked for a while after that until we both fell asleep. The next session started with that guy's character waking everyone up by banging frying pans together. The monk mentions that she left my character's room grumbling about the noise. This immediately made that guy question why she was in my character's room, and if she and I had slept together. I would permanently lose any and all holy power since I chose to give in to temptation. Monk and I told him that we never did anything, and that wasn't part of the rules. That guy told us to shut up, and that was how he played holy classes. Monk then pointed out that guy's character slept with some of his fans, so why doesn't he lose his powers? That guy stuttered for a moment and said that it doesn't count since he got permission from his goddess, so I'm still pure. Yes, he actually said that. The first 10 minutes was filled with the monk and I explaining to a betrayed that guy's character that we did nothing and that the monk fell asleep when she came to smoke with my character. I felt like I was talking to a child when he tried to make Monk swear to him that she would do nothing like that again with my character. Monk refused and left the mansion that we were staying at. That guy ended that session immediately following that. Luckily, our next session was 2 weeks after since he needed some time to calm down. Once we got back, it didn't sound like that guy calmed down when he made an army of powerful demons and another demon general attack the party that we were attending. The same party where we were without armor and weapons. The general was a succubus named Leviathan, and she kept throwing charm spells and snake bindings at my character. My character was both strong and wise, so he kept making his saves thanks to Bless. Monk was actually the one who saved my character by hitting the general with a stunning strike. Since the other devils were killed, that guy's character decided to wait by the remains of the punch bowl while we fought the general since we had this handled. Thanks to Monk spending all of her ki on punching demons, Barbarian tanking a lot of psychic damage that he wasn't resistant to, and Sorcerer healing me with her psychic flame, it was about 3 points. I couldn't be mad since it got me back to my feet. I wasn't completely killed off on that fight. It took a flame strike and a lot of guiding bolts to bring the general to a point that Barbarian was able to sever her head with a brutal critical. This was also when Bard realized something. After that mess of a session, the group found out that Bard and Barbarian left the Discord. That guy said that they left due to personal issues, but we had the second Discord channel that guy didn't know about. In there, Bard brought up information that shocked everyone. Bard had found out that some parts of that guy's story had similarities to some popular anime. Then we found out some of the likable NPCs that guy had made, the story, and our characters, character development, were all stolen from anime. Sorcerer was being turned into Koneko from High School DxD. Monk was being turned into Ryuko, with the whole talking item that she wore and the crimson sword that used to belong to her father. The Devil Council plot was a copy of High School DxD. The likable NPCs were stolen from recent popular isekai anime. Most of these things were altered so it wasn't obvious, but we saw the similarities when we realized it. It was like our characters were fighting for a world that wasn't real in the first place. Once Bard found out and confronted that guy about it, that guy immediately kicked him and Barbarian from the Discord and Roll20, hoping to keep him from telling us. But there was one more terrible piece of information. Barbarian found out that this guy was making the entire campaign into one of his fanfics. Barbarian sent us a link where that guy was posting each session as chapters and changing information to make it sound like a cheap isekai story. In there, his character lost both scientist parents who left him powerful items before they died, and he got experimented on by an evil lady that would violate him in a later chapter. Then he died and went to a fantasy world where he became this ultimate badass. Monk became his lover, Sorcerer became his adopted sister, and the guys were people that he beat up and joined him because they respected his strength. This story was pretty much a version of our campaign that he changed into one that everyone loved his death-powered OC. The players and I debated if finishing our character stories was even worth it. Bard and Barbarian didn't want to return, since that guy was using the old DM's world and our characters and turning it into a power fantasy. We didn't have proof of the story belonging to someone else since the old DM had the document, so we couldn't report it. The party wanted to confront that guy in our next session and quit the game in his face. But I had a better plan that came with some IRL divine intervention. The old DM contacted us to see how we were doing and to let us know that he would be able to run our old game again. Our old game story even opened and allowed people inside, so we immediately ran my plan that I sent to the party on our private server. Our final session with that guy came up. He wanted us to attack the Devil Generals to save our NPC loved ones that were kidnapped, while his character went in by himself to solo the Devil Lord, who was trying to become the Omni Lord of everything. This was obviously his way to make his character the Omni King for even more power. Our characters cut him off by saying that he wasn't fit for the role either, since he obviously worshipped the devil who wanted the power for herself. His character laughed at us for this and told us to stop messing around and do what he said if he wanted to save our loved ones. I then used divine intervention and action surge right there on the spot. This was a homebrew rule that guy had made up, allowing Action Search to make any magical spell, effect, or anything like that be unable to be interrupted by things like Mage Slayer or Counterspell. This was to make his character stronger, and one of his attempts to flirt with Monk by his character offering to teach it to her. That guy was about to make up something to stop this, but I cut him off by saying my roll out loud. I got a 4 on my roll and made the request to change the hand of fate by sending myself and those that I care for into a separate reality timeline and killing off this timeline along with those that remained. Once I said that, all of us left the chat and server and blocked that guy. Since this was my way of killing his story and letting us leave without him getting to do anything in the end, before we left, each member of the party sent a report to the website where that guy's story was posted. This was to report a few things in his story that violated the website's guidelines. Some of the jokes that he had made, some of the scenes that he wrote, and pictures that he used were too not safe for work. Luckily, this worked and his story was soon taken down. So obviously both he and his followers were upset about this. But we didn't care since it was stolen work, and we didn't want him to get followers for something that he didn't even write himself. Even if that guy tried to act like this character never got killed, losing his fanfic would leave a deeper impact on his ultimate badass character. It didn't take long for that guy and his followers on his fanfic account to start asking about the sudden disappearance of his story. Then, an hour later, that guy contacted me on a separate account and sent me the longest paragraph to rant about what I did. I skimmed it, and it isn't worth repeating. Then it was time to go back to our new game with our original DM. When we returned, we continued the story a year after our old one with him ended, to explain our rise to level 12. We didn't want to stress the DM about what happened when he asked about that guy's game. So we just said that we fought a lot of devils, followed his character after that guy made him into a DMPC, and lost all clues as to who was responsible for the cursed lands. We left out the worst parts to keep his innocence, but when we mentioned that my character had his goddess change fate to give him a chance, he actually liked this. We saw the spark in his eyes and the gears in his head started moving again. When we got back into the game, my character was visited by his goddess due to divine intervention that he had used. She explained that he needed to stop a cult of necromancers that's responsible for the cursed lands and gave him directions to an unfinished legendary item to help the party stop them. This made the party excited for an actual quest that had us travel all over the world for the components for this item. One that grew the bond that started when Monk and I shared that blunt. Soon enough, we started dating, both in-game and out of game. Eventually, we had our final surprise where the BBEG was that guy's big, bad, evil goddess. It made sense, and she gave the dude undead powers and gave pact magic to the necromancers. This was the DM's plan from the start. So after killing that guy's character, who was her chosen one, we slayed her, and my character was given the honors of using the artifact to purge the ritual that she was using. The DM described how Saloon herself sent her magic through my character to use his connection with the Feywild to restore the cursed lands back into forests and green fields all over the world. The Feywild would then fuse with the mortal plane, and a birth of a new world with new places to explore. This was the world that he had built over those 2 years. This was the best time to retire our now level 18 characters, since they finally got the ending that they deserved. Would you have suffered for 2 years for a happy ending? I don't know if I would have stuck it out with that guy's game, but at least these players got their happy ending. Tell me what you think in a comment down below. Before we take our leave, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content every week.